The Korath Dominion had ruled the stars for 300 years. They had conquered 40 star systems. They had crushed every species that stood against them. In all their long history, they had never known defeat. They believed they were the strongest beings in the universe. High Commander Veth stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the star map. His fleet of 12 cruisers floated in the darkness of space. They had traveled far from home to investigate a strange signal. The signal came from a region of space that the Korath had never explored before. What do we know about this place? Veth asked his intelligence officer. Overseer Rin stepped forward. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that could see in complete darkness. Like all Korath, he carried himself with pride and certainty. The signal comes from the 3rd planet of this small star system, Rin said. The planet is called Earth. The creatures living there call themselves humans. Veth made a sound of amusement. Humans. What a strange name. What do we know about their military power? Rin checked his data screens. They are very young, Commander. They have only been traveling in space for about 200 years. Their ships are small. Their weapons are primitive. They have no empire, no conquered worlds. They stay close to their home planet. Weak, Veth said with satisfaction. Another easy conquest for the Dominion. The other officers on the bridge laughed. They had done this many times before. Find a weak species. Destroy their defenses. Take their resources. Add their world to the Korath Empire. It was simple. It was what they did. Veth gave the order to move closer to the human territory. His 12 cruisers flew through space like predators hunting prey. They did not bother to hide themselves. Why would they? No species had ever been able to stop them. On the edge of the human solar system, there was a small mining colony. It floated near a large planet made of gas. About 3,000 humans lived there. They spent their days collecting valuable minerals from nearby asteroids. It was a peaceful place. The workers had families. They had hopes and dreams. They had no idea that death was coming for them. The Korath fleet appeared without warning. A young human woman named Somi was working in the control room when the alarms started screaming. She looked at her screens and felt her blood turn cold. 12 massive alien ships had appeared out of nowhere. They were surrounding the colony. What is that? Another worker shouted. What are those ships? Somi tried to send a message to Earth, but her hands were shaking. She had never seen alien ships before. Nobody had. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was terrifying. High Commander Veth watched the small human colony on his viewing screen. It looked fragile. It looked helpless. He felt nothing but contempt. Send them a message, Veth ordered. Tell them to surrender. Tell them that the Korath Dominion claims this territory. Their lives will be spared if they submit immediately. The message was sent. For a few minutes, there was only silence. Then a reply came from the colony. A human voice, shaking with fear, but trying to sound brave. This is Mining Colony 7. We are a civilian outpost. We have no weapons. Please, we mean you no harm. Let us contact our government. We can talk. We can find peace. Veth laughed. Peace. What a foolish concept. The strong did not ask for peace. The strong took what they wanted. They have no weapons, Veth said to his officers. They cannot even defend themselves. This will not be a battle. This will be a lesson. We will show these humans what happens to species who occupy territory that the Dominion wants. Should we accept their surrender? Rin asked. Veth shook his head. No, we will make an example of them. When the other humans see what we did here, they will know that resistance is pointless. They will surrender their entire planet without a fight. He gave the order to open fire. The Korath cruisers unleashed their weapons on the mining colony. Beams of burning energy tore through the station's thin walls. Explosions ripped through the corridors. People screamed. People ran. There was nowhere to go. SOM. I grabbed the communication device as the ceiling collapsed around her. She had to warn Earth. She had to tell them what was happening. With her last breath, she sent a distress signal carrying all the data about the alien ships. 3,000 humans died in less than 10 minutes. Men, women, and children. Workers and families. All of them gone. The mining colony became a tomb of twisted metal and silence. Veth watched the destruction with satisfaction. The message had been sent. The humans would understand their place in the universe now. They would bow before the Korath Dominion just like every other species. It is done, Rin reported. No survivors. Good, Veth said. Now we wait. The humans will send diplomats. They will beg for mercy. And we will give them our terms. The Korath fleet held position near the destroyed colony. They waited for the humans to respond. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They expected the same thing that had happened with every other species they had encountered. But something was different this time. On Earth, the distress signal arrived at military headquarters. The message was played for the highest commanders. They saw the footage of the attack. They heard the screams. They watched their people die. Admiral Taiho stood in the command center. He was an older man with gray hair and steady hands. He had spent his entire life preparing for something he hoped would never happen. Now it had happened, and he felt a cold anger building in his chest. 3,000 civilians, he said quietly. They killed 3,000 civilians. Sir, what are your orders? His aide asked. Taiho was silent for a long moment. He looked at the faces of his officers. He saw the same cold anger in their eyes. Wake the Titan, he said. A single message was sent to the Korath fleet. It was short. It contained no fear. It contained no offer of surrender. The message said, "You have made an error." High Commander Veth read the message and laughed. An error? These primitive humans thought the Korath had made an error? They would learn. They would all learn. But deep in Earth's orbit, something ancient and terrible was beginning to wake up. Something that humanity had built in secret. Something that the universe had never seen before. The Korath Dominion had no idea what they had started. Deep in Earth's orbit, hidden behind the moon, there was a shipyard that very few people knew about. It had been built in secret over 100 years ago. The governments of Earth had worked together on this project. They had put aside their differences because they all shared the same fear. The fear of what might be waiting in the darkness between the stars. Humanity had always looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They hoped to find friends out there. But they prepared for enemies. They prepared for the worst thing they could imagine. They built the Magungwa. Admiral Taiho took a shuttle from Earth to the secret shipyard. As his small vessel came around the moon, he saw it for the first time in many years. Even though he knew what to expect, the sight still took his breath away. The Magungwa was not just a ship. It was a mountain of metal floating in space. It stretched for 12 kilometers from front to back. Its hull was covered with weapons. Big weapons. More weapons than any fleet in human history had ever carried combined. This was a Titan-class dreadnought. The first and only one ever built. It had taken 3 generations of humans to complete it. Millions of people had worked on it. Trillions of dollars had been spent. All for a ship that everyone hoped would never need to fight. That hope had died with the 3,000 civilians on mining colony. 7. Taiho's shuttle landed in one of the massive docking bays. He stepped out and walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Crew members saluted him as he passed. There were 10,000 people serving on this ship. 10,000 humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment. He reached the bridge. It was enormous, with screens covering every wall and dozens of officers working at their stations. In the center stood Captain Yuna, his tactical officer. She was a woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. Nothing ever seemed to shake her. "Admiral on the bridge," someone announced. Everyone stood at attention. Taiho waved them back to their work. "Status report," he said. Yuna stepped forward with a tablet in her hands. "All systems are online, Admiral. Weapons are charged and ready. Shields are at full power. The crew is prepared. The Omega weapon?" Yuna paused for just a moment. "Standing by. I hope we will not need it." "So do I," Taiho said quietly. He walked to the main viewing screen. Stars filled the darkness. Somewhere out there, the aliens who had murdered his people were waiting. They probably thought they were safe. They probably thought humans were weak and primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lieutenant Juan approached the Admiral. He was the weapons specialist, a young man with a brilliant mind and steady hands. He had memorized every weapon system on the ship. He knew exactly what the Magango could do. "Sir, I have calculated our firepower against the enemy fleet," Juan said. "Based on the data from the colony's distress signal, the alien ships have strong armor but limited shields. Our main cannon should be able to destroy them with single shots. How many enemies are there?" 12 cruisers, sir. We could destroy them all in minutes." Taiho nodded slowly. "We will give them one chance to surrender. One chance to pay for what they did. If they refuse, we show no mercy." Commander Nari, the first officer, joined them. She was known throughout the fleet for her strategic brilliance. She could see patterns in battle that others missed. She could predict what enemies would do before they did it. "Admiral, I have a concern," Nari said. "Speak." "If we destroy this fleet, the aliens will send more ships. We need to be ready for a larger war." Taiho looked at her with tired eyes. "I know, but we cannot let this attack go unanswered. If we show weakness now, every hostile species in the galaxy will see us as prey. We must show them what happens when you attack humanity." Nari understood. Sometimes peace required a demonstration of strength so overwhelming that no enemy would dare to test you again. The crew worked through the night, making final preparations. In the sleeping quarters, young Ensign Do-Hyun sat on his bed and wrote a letter to his family. He was only 23 years old. He had joined the Navy to explore the stars, not to fight in a war, but he thought about the 3,000 people who had died. He thought about the families who would never see their loved ones again. He thought about what would happen if the aliens attacked Earth itself. He finished his letter and sealed it. If he died in the coming battle, his family would receive it. If he survived, he would throw it away and write a new one telling them about his victory. On the bridge, Admiral Taiho addressed the entire crew through the ship's speakers. His voice was steady and strong. "Crew of the Magongwa, you all know why we are here. 3 days ago, an alien empire called the Karath Dominion attacked our people without warning. They murdered 3,000 innocent civilians, men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong." He paused to let his words sink in. "The Kora think we are weak. They think we will surrender. They think we will bow down and accept their rule. They are wrong." The crew listened in silence. Every word burned into their hearts. For 100 years, humanity has prepared for this moment. We hoped it would never come. We prayed that we would meet friends among the stars instead of enemies. But we also built this ship. We built the greatest weapon in human history. Not because we love war, but because we love the things that war destroys. Taiho's voice grew harder. our families, our homes, our freedom, our future. The Korath have threatened all of these things. And now they will learn what happens when you threaten what humans love. He took a deep breath. We are not going to negotiate. We are not going to show fear. We are going to show the entire galaxy that humanity is not to be attacked. We are going to show them that the cost of harming our people is absolute destruction. The crew began to cheer. The sound echoed through the massive ship. Prepare for faster-than-light jump, Taiho ordered. Destination, Mining Colony 7. We have aliens to educate. The Mugunwa's engines roared to life. The entire ship vibrated with power. On the bridge, officers watched their screens as the jump drive charged. Jump drive at full power. Yuna reported. All weapons standing by, Juan added. Course plotted and confirmed, Nari said. Admiral Taiho sat in his command chair. He looked at the stars one last time. Then he gave the order that would change the history of the galaxy. Jump. The Mugunwa vanished into a flash of light. It left behind Earth, the moon, and everything humanity had ever known. It carried with it the fury of an entire species. The Korath Dominion had made an error. They were about to find out exactly how big that error was. High Commander Veth was getting impatient. 3 days had passed since the attack on the human colony. 3 days of waiting. 3 days of silence from the primitive species called humanity. He paced back and forth on his bridge. His officers watched him nervously. They had never seen their commander so restless. Where is their surrender? Veth demanded. Where are their diplomats? Why have they not responded? Overseer Rin checked his communication screens for the 100th time. Still nothing, Commander. Only that one strange message. You have made an error. Veth repeated the words with contempt. What kind of response is that? Do they not understand what we did to them? Do they not understand that we will do the same to their homeworld? Perhaps they are too shocked to respond, one of the officers suggested. Perhaps they are still trying to understand what happened. Veth nodded. That made sense. The humans were primitive. They had never faced a real enemy before. They were probably terrified and confused. We will wait one more day, Veth decided. If they do not surrender by then, we will move to their homeworld and finish what we started. The Korath fleet continued to hold position near the destroyed mine colony. The wreckage floated around them like a reminder of their power. Veth looked at it with pride. This was what the Korath Dominion did. This was who they were. Then the sensors started screaming. Rin jumped to his console. His 4 eyes went wide with shock. Commander, something is coming out of hyperspace. Human ships? Veth asked. He smiled. Finally, they were sending their pathetic fleet to surrender. I do not know what this is, Rin said. His voice was shaking. The readings make no sense. The mass is too large. It cannot be a ship. Veth walked to the main viewing screen. He watched as a point of light grew brighter and brighter. Then something emerged from hyperspace dot for the first time in his long life. High Commander Veth felt fear. The thing that appeared before them was beyond anything he had ever seen. It was not a ship. It was a city. It was a mountain. It was a monster made of metal and weapons. The Mugunwa hung in space like a god looking down at insects. Its hull stretched across the viewing screen. Its weapons glowed with barely contained power. It was so large that it blocked out the stars behind it. That is impossible, Veth whispered. No species can build something that size. No species has that technology. But there it was, real, terrifying, pointing its weapons directly at the Korath fleet. On the bridge of the Mugunwa, Admiral Taiho looked at the 12 enemy cruisers. They looked so small. They looked like toys compared to his ship. Open a channel, he ordered. Ensign Dohin pressed the buttons on his console. "Channel open, sir." Taiho spoke calmly into the microphone. "Korath Fleet. This is Admiral Taiho of the Earthship Maganwa. 3 days ago, you attacked our people without warning. You murdered 3,000 innocent civilians. I am here to deliver humanity's response." On his own bridge, Veth listened to the human's words. His mind was racing. He had to do something. He had to act. "All ships open fire." Veth screamed. "Destroy that thing. Destroy it now." The 12 Korath cruisers launched everything they had. Beams of energy shot across space. Missiles flew toward the giant human ship. Explosions covered the Maganwa's hull. When the light faded, the Maganwa was untouched. Its shields had absorbed everything without even flickering. On the human bridge, Lieutenant Wan checked his readings. "Their weapons did nothing, Admiral. Our shields are still at 100%. Taiho nodded slowly. "Lieutenant Wan, return fire." Wan pressed a single button. The Maganwa's main cannon fired. A beam of light brighter than a star shot across space. It hit the first Korath cruiser and went straight through it. The ship exploded into 1,000,000 pieces. But the beam kept going. It hit the second cruiser. Then the third. 3 ships destroyed with a single shot. The Korath officers stared at their screens in disbelief. This was not possible. This was not how war worked. They were supposed to be the strong ones. They were supposed to be the conquerors. "Fire again," Taiho ordered. The Maganwa's secondary weapons came online. Plasma lances burned through space. Kinetic rounds the size of buildings smashed into enemy ships. One by one, the Korath cruisers died. Veth watched his fleet being destroyed. He watched ships that had conquered entire planets being torn apart like paper. His officers were screaming. Some were crying. Some were praying to gods that had never answered. "Fall back," Veth ordered. "All ships retreat." But there was nowhere to go. The human ship was faster. Its weapons had longer range. Every time a Korath cruiser tried to run, it was destroyed from behind. Captain Yuna watched the battle with cold eyes. 8 cruisers destroyed. 4 remaining. 2 attempting to flee. The commander's ship is trying to charge its jump drive. "Disable the commander's ship," Taiho said. "Destroy the rest." Wan's hands moved across his console. Precise shots struck the engines of Veth's flagship. The ship went dark, drifting helplessly in space. The last 3 cruisers were destroyed moments later. The entire battle lasted 8 minutes. 12 Korath cruisers, the pride of the Dominion, reduced to floating debris. Only Veth's crippled ship remained. On that ship, High Commander Veth sat in his chair and stared at nothing. His fleet was gone. His crew was dead. Everything he believed about the universe had been shattered. A message came through on his console. The human admiral's voice filled the silent bridge. "High Commander Veth, I know you are still alive. I could destroy your ship right now. But I want you to live. I want you to go home. I want you to tell your leaders what happened here." Veth said nothing. He could not find words. "You thought we were weak," Taiho continued. "You thought we were primitive. You thought you could murder our people and face no consequences. This was your error." The human's voice grew harder. "Go home, Commander. Tell your empire what you saw today. Tell them that humanity does not forget. Tell them that humanity does not forgive. And tell them that if they ever attack our people again, we will not stop at destroying a fleet. We will destroy everything. Every ship. Every station. Every world." The message ended. A few minutes later, Veth's ship was pushed into hyperspace by the human vessel's tractor beam. He was being sent home like a messenger carrying bad news. because that was exactly what he was. On the Mugunwa, the crew stood in silence. They had won. They had avenged the 3,000 who died. But there was no celebration, no cheering. They all knew that this was just the beginning. Commander Nari approached Admiral Tayo. "Sir, the Korath will send more ships. They will want revenge." Tayo looked at the debris floating outside. Pieces of metal that used to be enemy warships. "Let them come," he said quietly. "We will be waiting." The Mugunwa turned and flew toward the wreckage of Mayan Colony 7. There, among the ruins, they held a brief ceremony for the 3,000 who had died. Admiral Taiho spoke the names of every victim. It took over an hour, but every name deserved to be heard. Then the Titan-class dreadnought flew back to Earth. Its mission was complete. For now, the Korath Dominion had learned fear, but they had not yet learned the full extent of humanity's power. That lesson was still coming. Korath Homeworld was a dark planet covered in metal cities. For 300 years, it had been the center of an empire that stretched across 40 star systems. Billions of Korath lived there, believing they were the masters of the universe. High Commander Veth's crippled ship appeared in orbit. Rescue vessels rushed to bring him down to the surface. He was taken directly to the High Council, the ruling body of the Korath Dominion. The council chamber was massive. It was designed to make visitors feel small and afraid. But Veth felt nothing. He was already broken. The 5 members of the High Council sat on elevated chairs, looking down at him. The supreme leader, an ancient Korath named Korth, spoke first. "Report, Commander. Where is your fleet?" Veth stood before them with empty eyes. "Destroyed." The council members looked at each other in confusion. This had to be a mistake. "All 12 cruisers?" Another council member asked. "All 12. In 8 minutes." A murmur went through the chamber. Korth leaned forward, his old face twisted with anger. "Explain yourself. How could primitive humans destroy an entire Korath fleet?" Veth took a deep breath. Then he told them everything. He described the massive ship that emerged from hyperspace. He described how their weapons did nothing to it. He described how it destroyed cruiser after cruiser with casual ease. "It was like fighting a god," Veth said. "We could not hurt it. We could not run from it. We could only die." The council did not believe him. They could not believe him. Accepting his words would mean accepting that the Korath Dominion was not the strongest power in the galaxy. That was unthinkable. "You are lying," Korth declared. "Or you are a coward who ran from battle. Either way, you have failed the Dominion." "I am telling the truth," Veth insisted. "I saw it with my own eyes. The humans have a weapon unlike anything we have ever faced." "Impossible," another council member shouted. "They are primitives. They have no empire. They barely left their own planet." Veth said nothing more. He knew they would not listen. They were too proud, too arrogant. Just like he had been before the battle, Korth made his decision. "We will send the Grand Armada, 200 warships, the full military might of the Korath Dominion. We will crush these humans and take their planet as a prize. This insult cannot stand." The other council members agreed. The order was given. Within a day, the largest fleet in Korath history was assembled. 200 warships, each one carrying thousands of soldiers. Enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. The fleet departed for human space with confidence. They would avenge the lost cruisers. They would prove that the Korath were still supreme. Veth watched them go. He felt sorry for them. They had no idea what was waiting. On Earth, Admiral Taiho received intelligence about the approaching armada. His officers gathered on the bridge of the Mugunwa to discuss their response. 200 ships, Commander Nari said. That is a significant force. Should we request support from Earth's defense fleet? Captain Yuna asked. Taiho shook his head. No, the Mugunwa will go alone. His officers looked at him with surprise. One ship against 200? Sir, are you certain? Nari asked carefully. I am certain, Taiho replied. If we send our entire fleet, the Korath will think we needed everything we had to defeat them. But if one ship destroys their armada, the message will be clear. We do not need fleets. We do not need numbers. One human ship is enough to end their empire. The logic was cold but sound. This was not just about winning a battle. This was about making sure no one ever attacked humanity again. The Mugunwa jumped to intercept the Korath armada. The two forces met in empty space, far from any star system. The Korath fleet spread out in attack formation. 200 warships against one. The odds seemed overwhelming. The Korath admiral, a veteran named Drell, opened communications. Human vessel. You are outnumbered and outmatched. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Admiral Taiho's response was simple. You lost 12 ships last time. Do you really want to lose 200? Drell laughed. 12 ships were caught by surprise. 200 ships will crush you. This is your final warning. Taiho ended the communication. He looked at his crew. They were ready. All weapons free, he ordered. Show them what humanity can do. The battle began. The Korath armada opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of weapons launched at the Mugunwa. The space around the human ship filled with light and explosions. When the barrage ended, the Mugunwa was still there. Still untouched. Still coming. Then it fired back. The main cannon tore through a line of Korath ships. The plasma lances struck targets from impossible distances. The kinetic accelerators punched through shields and armor like they were made of paper. Ships exploded. Then more ships. Then more. The Korath tried to surround the human vessel. The Mugunwa simply rotated, bringing fresh weapons to bear on every side. It moved through the enemy fleet like a monster through a crowd of children. Admiral Drell watched in horror as his fleet died around him. He ordered retreat, but it was too late. The human ship was everywhere at once. Its weapons never stopped firing. Its shields never weakened. One by one, the Korath warships were destroyed. Some tried to run. They were hunted down and eliminated. Some tried to surrender. Their signals were ignored. There would be no mercy. Not after what the Korath had done. The battle lasted less than 1 hour. 200 Korath warships, the pride of the Dominion, reduced to floating wreckage. Not a single human ship was lost. Not a single human life. The Mugunwa emerged from the debris field without a scratch. Admiral Taiho gave his next order. Set course for the Korath homeworld. The Titan-class dreadnought jumped across space. When it emerged, it was in orbit above the Korath capital planet. Billions of aliens looked up and saw a human ship blocking out the stars. Panic spread through the cities. The planetary defense systems activated, but the Mugunwa destroyed them with casual shots. It positioned itself directly above the government district. Admiral Taiho opened a channel to the planet below. His message was broadcast on every frequency, heard by every Korath on the world. Leaders of the Korath Dominion, your armada is destroyed. Your military is broken. Your empire is at my mercy. In the council chamber, Korath and the other leaders listened in silence. They finally understood what Veth had tried to tell them. You attacked our civilians without provocation, Taiho continued. You murdered 3,000 innocent people. I could end your species today. I have the power to burn your cities, crack your planet, and wipe your civilization from existence. He paused to let the words sink in. But humanity does not want genocide. We do not want empire. We want only to be left alone. So I offer you a choice. The entire planet held its breath. Surrender unconditionally. Pay reparations for the lives you took. Sign a treaty promising eternal peace with humanity. Do this, and your species survives. Taiho's voice hardened. Refuse, and I will show you what Protocol Omega can do. I will make an example that the entire galaxy will remember for 1,000,000 years. In the council chamber, Korth looked at the other leaders. Their pride was gone. Their arrogance had been burned away. They were facing extinction, and they knew it. Korth stood up slowly. His ancient body trembled as he spoke into the communication system. We accept your terms. The Korth Dominion surrenders. The message echoed across the planet, across the Empire, across the galaxy. The masters of 40 star systems had fallen to a single ship from a species they had dismissed as primitive. The war was over. Humanity had won, but Admiral Taiho knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was watching. Everyone would know what happened here, and everyone would remember. News of the Korth defeat spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species with interstellar travel heard the story. An ancient empire that had conquered 40 systems, destroyed in a single day by a single ship from a species no one had heard of before dawn. At first, many did not believe it. The Korth Dominion had been the greatest military power in the known galaxy for 300 years. How could they fall so quickly? How could they fall to primitives? Then the evidence arrived. Recordings of the battles. Images of the destroyed fleets. Video of the Korth leaders surrendering on their knees. And always, at the center of everything, that impossible ship. 12 kilometers of metal and weapons, hanging in space like a threat made real. The galaxy had a new power, and no one knew what to make of it. On the space station called Neutral Ground, the Galactic Council of Free Worlds held an emergency meeting. Representatives from over 50 species gathered to discuss the human situation. Fear filled the chamber like a fog. They destroyed 200 warships in less than an hour, one representative said. What stops them from doing the same to us? We must form an alliance against them, another suggested. Together, we can match their power. You are fools, a third voice cut in. It belonged to Emissary Tal, a diplomatic representative from one of the oldest species in the galaxy. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had witnessed countless wars. Did you not hear the human admiral's words? They do not want empire. They want only to be left alone. And you believe them? The first representative asked. Tal's expression was calm. I believe what I saw. They had the power to destroy the Korth completely. Instead, they accepted surrender. They offered peace. A species that wanted conquest would not do this. The debate continued for hours. In the end, Tal was chosen to make first contact with the humans. She would travel to their ship and learn what kind of people they really were. Tal arrived at the Magungwa 3 days later. Her small diplomatic vessel looked like a toy next to the massive human dreadnought. She docked and was escorted through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Finally, she reached the bridge. Admiral Taiho was waiting for her. Tal had met many military leaders in her long life. Most of them had eyes filled with hunger for power. Taiho's eyes were different. They were tired, sad, the eyes of a man who had done terrible things because he had no other choice. Welcome aboard, emissary, Taiho said. I understand you have questions. Tal nodded. The galaxy is afraid of your species, Admiral. They saw what you did to the Korth. They wonder if you will do the same to them. Taiho led her to a viewing port. They looked out at the stars together. We did not want this, he said quietly. We spent 200 years exploring space peacefully. We hoped to find friends. We hoped to find civilizations we could learn from. Instead, The first aliens we met murdered 3,000 of our people. And so you built this ship. No, we built this ship 100 years before the Korath found us. We built it because we knew that the universe might be dangerous. We hoped we would never need to use it. Tal studied the old human carefully. You could have destroyed the Korath completely. Why did you show mercy? Taiho was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with emotion. Because we are not monsters, emissary. We did not build this ship because we love war. We built it because we love the things that war destroys. He turned to face her directly. Our families, our children, our homes, our dreams. The Korath threatened all of these things. So we showed them what happens when you threaten what humans love. But once they surrendered, once the threat was over, we had no desire to keep killing. Tal considered his words carefully. And what do you want now? What does humanity seek in this galaxy? Peace, Taiho answered simply. Trade, knowledge, friendship, if any species will offer it. We do not want to conquer anyone. We do not want to rule over other worlds. We just want to live our lives and explore the universe. But if someone attacks you again, Taiho's eyes hardened. Then we will do what we did to the Korath. We will not start wars, emissary, but we will finish them. Tal nodded slowly. She believed him. In all her years of diplomacy, she had learned to recognize truth when she heard it. I will tell the council what you have said, she promised. I will recommend that they welcome humanity into the galactic community. Thank you. Before she left, Tal asked one final question. It was the question that every species in the galaxy wanted answered. Why did you build something so powerful? You had no enemies in space when you started. You did not know we existed. What made you prepare for a war that might never come? Admiral Taiho smiled sadly. It was the smile of someone who understood something profound about his own species. Humans have a long history, emissary. We have fought wars among ourselves for thousands of years. We have seen what happens when peaceful people are unprepared for violence. We have watched civilizations fall because they believed that war could never reach them. He gestured at the massive ship around them. We hoped for the best. We prepared for the worst. And when the worst came, we were ready. Tal returned to neutral ground and delivered her report. The Galactic Council debated for many days. Some species remained afraid of humanity. Others were curious. A few were even hopeful. In the end, they decided to extend an invitation. Humanity was welcomed into the galactic community. Trade agreements were signed. Diplomatic channels were opened. The humans proved to be exactly what Taiho had promised. They were peaceful, curious, and eager to learn. But everyone remembered the Magungwa. Everyone remembered what humanity could do if they were provoked. Years passed. Humanity grew and expanded, but they never conquered another species. They never started a war. They built more ships, improved their technology, and always maintained their defenses. The Titan-class dreadnought remained in service, a silent guardian watching over Earth. Species that had once feared the Korath dominion now prospered in freedom. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 centuries was reduced to a single planet, stripped of its military power and forced to pay reparations for its crimes. Some said humanity had made the galaxy safer. Others said they had simply replaced one powerful species with another. But no one could deny that things had changed. Admiral Taiho retired from service 5 years after the war. He returned to Earth and lived quietly in a small house by the ocean. Sometimes he would sit on his porch at night and look up at the stars. He would think about the 3,000 people who had died. He would think about the decisions he had made. He would wonder if there had been another way. But he knew the truth. The universe was dangerous. And sometimes the only way to survive was to be more dangerous. On his last night, Surrounded by his family, Taiho looked up at the sky one final time. Somewhere up there, the Mugging Wool was still watching, still protecting, still ready. He smiled and closed his eyes. The galaxy would remember humanity for 1,000,000 years. They would tell stories about the species that came from nowhere and defeated an empire in a single day. They would speak of the impossible ship and the admiral who commanded it, but the humans themselves did not care about glory or fame. They cared about their families, their homes, and their future, and they would protect those things against any threat, no matter how powerful. That was the lesson the Korath had learned. That was the lesson the galaxy would never forget. Humans were not to be underestimated. Never again.